Good afternoon, listeners. This is Imad Kasir, your RJ from Planet FM 87.6, and the show is Mind and Muse. Every Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m., we dive deep into the rich worlds of literature, art, mind sciences, book reviews, and much more. And we are joined by esteemed guests in our studios. And listeners, you can catch us live on www.radio.gov.pk/live-streaming. You can download Radio Pakistan's app from the Play Store, and you can follow us on our Facebook page with the name Planet FM 87.6. And listeners, you know that it's the month of November, and in this month, on 14th November, it's World Diabetes Day, and in that context, we have today invited a very special guest in our studios. She is a member executive council of an NPO having branches all across Pakistan, and she is the co-founder also of that NPO, and her name is Anum Anwar. She is an inspirational lady with so many impressive stuff related to her and with her story. And what is her connection with this World Diabetes Day? That's what we'll be exactly asking from her in today's special show. So, Anum Anwar Saiba, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Imad, for inviting me.
So let's start with a basic question. Ma'am, can you start by telling our listeners a little about yourself and your journey? How did diabetes become such a central part of your story?
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Anum Anwar. I live with type 1 diabetes, and that's why it's very much connected with me. By qualification, I have a degree in molecular medicine and diabetes education as well, but I work as a diabetes advocate with the not-for-profit organization in Pakistan, and also internationally as a Blue Circle voice with International Diabetes Federation and DDOC. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at a very young age, and growing up with it literally shaped how I see health, empathy, and education. Back then, there wasn't much awareness or support for people living with diabetes, so it was a steep learning curve for me. Over time, what started as a personal challenge became my purpose, my passion to make life with diabetes sweeter, more hopeful for others, and that's what drives the work I do today.
That's really inspirational. And can you please let our listeners know that how old were you when you were diagnosed, and how did that moment change your life?
Okay, so I was diagnosed right after my 5th birthday, and I have very few flashbacks from that time. I don't really remember a life before diabetes. Before my diagnosis, I was often unwell, and visiting doctors was a norm for me. But nobody was able to figure out what is happening, what's going wrong. And then one night I went into DK, which is diabetic ketoacidosis. It's a diabetic coma. So the most of the memory I have is from that night when I was hospitalized. And I was hospitalized for around like a week or so. And that night was the point when my family actually got to know that I have type 1 diabetes. It was a tough start initially, especially because there wasn't much awareness or support available. I was the only one in my whole family who had this condition. So just accepting the diagnosis itself was pretty difficult. I would say the hardest part wasn't just medical bit, but the emotional well-being and acceptance, because I had needle phobia, and initially having those shots thrice a day for a 5-year-old was pretty tough. It was like a nightmare for me, and I can still I still feel traumatized if I think of that time. Apart from that, there was so much stigma and taboo around this condition. checking blood sugars and taking insulin or being careful in managing your condition became a part of my everyday life. But handling the stigma and discrimination associated with this condition is something we still fight with. And me and my family gradually learned how to deal with all those things, and that experience gradually built resilience in all of us. So growing up with that was challenging, but it also shaped my empathy, sense of responsibility, discipline, and my commitment to build a more informed and understanding community.
That's inspirational. And what were some of the early challenges? You were mentioning that it really was a tough stuff when you were diagnosed. And can you let our listeners know what exactly is this type 1 diabetes and how was it difficult in facing this in Pakistan especially?
So there were so many challenges in those early years. With type 1 diabetes, you have to monitor your glucose levels more often and take insulin accordingly because your body is not producing insulin. So I remember the toughest part, if I talk about the medical side of the condition, was the glucose testing process because it was pretty painful. We didn't have modern lensing devices. The Lancet has to be pricked directly on my finger, and that was very painful for a 5-year-old, of course. And then the insulin options were limited too back then. I remember initially there was only beef insulin available, no human insulin in Pakistan. So I started with that. And then there was another thing, that there was no concept of carb counting or structured diabetes education for type 1 diabetes specifically in Pakistan available at that time. And on top of that, as I mentioned earlier, there was little to no understanding about the condition itself. Many thought it's same as type 2 diabetes, or even some felt like it's contagious. So I remember a few of my classmates stopped sitting with me or playing with me, thinking that maybe they will also
that
catch
must
the
have
condition.
been painful. I mean,
Yeah.
and for our listeners, would you please tell the difference between type 1 and type 2?
Sure. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. It can, previously we used to say that it's juvenile diabetes because most of the incidence was in early ages or either in teenage or adolescence. But with the latest studies, we know that type 1 diabetes can happen at any stage of your life. It's an autoimmune condition. Your immune system attacks your beta cells, and that disrupts the insulin production of your body, and you have to take insulin externally, and without that you cannot survive. So that's a very important component to treat this condition. However, type 2 diabetes is more about lifestyle choices, but then again there are also some things like hormones, insulin resistance, obesity, and other challenges that they face. Type 1 diabetes is not preventable, neither it can be cured, and that's the biggest misconception often people have. While type 2 diabetes, there is a stronger family history, but people could still at least delay the onset if they are very much careful about their day-to-day life. So that's the primary difference. And in type 2, insulin is not the only option. In severe cases, you need to switch on insulin, but in the initial phases of type 2, since it is reversible as well, so you can go with the healthy lifestyle, eating healthy and doing workouts, and then also by oral hypoglycemic agents you can have
so that is
control on
manageable
that.
without. Okay, fine. Thank you. So what helped you turn those challenges into motivation to create change?
So if I talk about my teenage years, I was a bit of rebel, and gradually I began to reflect on myself, what I truly want. And what bothered me the most was that isolation part, that I had nobody around me to whom I could relate with. Growing up without peers who understood type 1 diabetes is such a big challenge that you feel like, why me? And you feel the misery. You could not channelize your emotions in the right manner. So that struggle also gave me an inner strength. I started seeing diabetes not only as a challenge, but as an opportunity, I would say, because that condition helped me in learning so many things. It motivated me to focus on my career in biological sciences and sparked a desire to contribute for type 1 community, type 1 diabetes research. And since peer support networks were non existent back then, so I created my own pathways to make a difference, and that's where the seed of my advocacy work actually began.
That's really inspirational. That's great. So tell us about your organization. How did it start and what inspired its name, of course, and what was the vision behind it and how has it evolved over time?
Right. So, even after achieving academic success, I had a thirst to do something more impactful, to meet someone like me with type 1 diabetes. And that connection finally happened back in 2014 when I actually met Dr. Sana Ajmal, who was Pakistan's first young leader in diabetes by International Diabetes Federation. She represented Pakistan over there. Together, we started building a peer network which grew into Pakistan's only type 1 community centric organization, Meethi Zindagi. And the name reflects the idea that even with diabetes, life can be sweet. Our meals can be sugar free, but our lives don't have to be. Over time, Meethi Zindagi has evolved a small support group into a nationwide movement that empowers, educates, and advocates for people living with type 1 diabetes.
That's great. And what are some of the key projects or initiatives that your organization has led in Pakistan?
So our organization is focused on type 1 diabetes, and there was a lot to do for type 1 diabetes back then and even till today. But the pioneering initiatives that we focused initially was education, access, and community support. One of our biggest project is named as Promise of Insulin, where we support around 1,500 underprivileged children with type 1 diabetes who could not afford insulin on their own. So we provide them insulin, uninterrupted access, and quality care to them. We also have a peer support network of around 5,000 type 1s and their caregivers. And this group provide guidance, emotional support, and sense of community. So this online group is a safe space for any or type 1 across Pakistan who want to talk about their condition or to share their experiences or facing some kind of isolation or difficulty in dealing with the condition. So that's the second major thing. Apart from that, education is a key, and Pakistan didn't have any educational specific resources that were for type 1 diabetes. So we built Tidbits, that's a digital education platform offering culturally tailored, clinically approved, standardized educational resource for managing type 1 diabetes. Alongside this, we also have set up 30 centers. These are digital education centers across Pakistan, made in different tertiary or secondary care hospitals. The aim was that the website is freely accessible for many, but what about those who live in remote areas? They do not have exposure, they don't know how to use a website, or they don't have devices or internet connectivity issues. So we try to disseminate the message through platforms like this, that anyone who want to learn about type 1 diabetes could visit those centers and they can get type 1 diabetes specific education from those centers.
That's brilliant. And can you share us any success story or a moment that made you feel, yes, this is making difference?
So yes, after almost a decade of advocacy, and I tell you, advocacy is a very tiring journey and it's a very slow process.
Yes, it is.
Policy change is not that easy. But after a decade of advocacy for insulin access, one of our provincial governments have recently started providing insulin directly to people with type 1 diabetes at their doorsteps. This is a model followed by us since 2018. as we believe access to insulin is a right and it should be provided with dignity. That was a huge milestone, in my opinion, that Pakistan's one province, which is the biggest one, Punjab, has now started that. At the same time, local industry stepped in by establishing biosimilar insulin production plants recently, so helping meet demand and supply. Seeing these changes felt like proof that persistent advocacy really can lead to lasting impacts.
That's great. And I mentioned in my intro that World Diabetes Day is celebrated on 14th November. So why is it celebrated on that day? And tell our listeners about that day.
Okay. So World Diabetes Day is the largest global awareness campaign for diabetes, observed every year on 14th November. Although I must say that we celebrate it for the whole November, but 14th November is the birthday of Sir Frederick Banting. He was one of the discoverer of insulin back in 1921. Before that, no type 1 was able to survive because insulin is the only survival option for us. For people with type 1 diabetes, this day carries a very deeper meaning for the same reason. World Diabetes Day honors that legacy while reminding us that the fight for universal insulin access continues. It's a day for everyone to stand together for a world where access to care is a right, not a privilege.
That's great. So, and what does that blue circle symbol means?
So, Blue Circle is an international symbol for diabetes awareness. The circle actually represents unity. The diabetes affects people across the globe, and we want to show that collective efforts are needed to address those challenges people with diabetes faces. The Blue Circle reflects a global nature of fight and hope for a healthier future. Whenever you see it, it reminds that we are all part of the same community.
That's really great, and that's what exactly we are. And what's the theme of this year on this day?
So this year, theme of for World Diabetes Day, the theme is diabetes and well-being, and there is a special focus on diabetes at workplace. It highlights that managing diabetes isn't just about medical care; it's also about emotional, mental, and social well-being. And I would like to mention here that I'm honored that International Diabetes Federation has featured my story as part of this campaign this year globally. And at my organization, we are going to celebrate World Diabetes Day with a cycling campaign in Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad, which is starting this weekend. And the aim is to connect people, to spread awareness, connecting physical activity with community engagement to diabetes awareness and workplace well-being.
Well, this is really impressive that your story has been selected for. They have selected this story, and the campaign you will be, that will be in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad.
Yes.
And when will it start? On the exact date? Or
so for Lahore, it's 9th of November. This Sunday, tomorrow.
All right.
And then in Islamabad, it's on Friday, 14th November, the World Diabetes Day itself. And in Karachi, it's 16th November.
That's really great. And listeners, we are having Anum Anwar in our studios with us, and we are having an insightful discussion with her on World Diabetes Day and type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and she is sharing her inspirational story with us, and we will join you right after this lovely track. Welcome back, listeners. This is Imad Kasir on Planet FM 87.6. The show is Mind and Muse, and before this lovely track, we were discussing the diabetes in Pakistan, especially type 1, and we are having Anum Anwar Sahiba with us in our studios, and she was sharing her inspirational story with us and more facts about diabetes and the World Diabetes Day. Ma'am, could you please tell us or share some statistics about type 1 diabetes in Pakistan?
So, I would say that they are not very good. Pakistan is ranking as first for type 1 diabetes as per International Diabetes Federation's latest atlas. And this is really alarming because the healthcare burden that comes up with this condition, be it type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes overall, is big. It's huge, and we could not really handle it. So it's a high time that we start doing mass awareness campaigns to manage this. If we specifically talk about the statistics of type 1 diabetes, so unfortunately we do not have a data registry, and we often miss the cases, but to a rough estimate, we have a population of around 20 to 25,000 young souls who have this condition. And as per another organization, which is T1D Index, one in every two people with type 1 diabetes die due to lack of awareness or access to care or treatment. That's why education, timely diagnosis, and access to insulin are very important. And these are young souls, and they are future of Pakistan. So we need to take some immediate actions to save these precious lives.
Yes, and this is really alarming that Pakistan is, you just shared that it is on number one. Can you let our listeners know what is the main cause? Why is Pakistan, unfortunately?
We have taken out the stats are for type 2 diabetes majorly, because we do not have much data about type 1 diabetes, but if we talk in general, the type 2 diabetes is a condition that majorly occurs due to unhealthy lifestyle, and then followed by, of course, obesity, hormonal changes, and family history. But all the later ones could be prevented or stopped or
managed. Right?
Yes, but for the unhealthy lifestyles, that's the control we have in our hands. And to manage this condition, all we have to do is to have a good life pattern, to wake up early, do some exercise, eat healthy, avoid junk food. So we often talk about what to serve to a person with diabetes, but I always advocate that a healthy plate, which has to be served to any normal individual, is the one which is for people with diabetes. It's just the portions that we have to play with, and that's all. But this is the biggest reason sedentary lifestyle is pushing us towards.
So here comes the question of awareness. Awareness is vital in such cases, especially for type 1. And what do you do to create that awareness?
Awareness literally saves lives. When early symptoms like excessive thirst or weight loss are not recognized, children often reach hospital in critical states like decay, as I mentioned, that happened with me as well. Educating parents, teachers, healthcare workers ensures early diagnosis and interventions. Often GPs miss these symptoms and signs because they are like when a child is growing up being thirsty or going to toilet is something that can be ignored or missed out. So regular screening is also very important. And if we just have awareness, that reduces stigma and clears misconceptions that see type 1 and type 2 through the same lens. It empowers communities to respond with empathy rather than judgment.
That's great. And what are some misconceptions about diabetes?
So again, type 1 and type 2, because the names are same, often people correlates them, and that's not the case, because one is an autoimmune and the other one is a metabolic condition. Many myths exist. One is that insulin is the last resort, which sometimes is the case for type 2, but in type 1 it's completely different. For type 1, insulin is the only and the first and only treatment. So to survive, a type 1 needs insulin since day one. Another is
so that's not the last, that's the first option.
That's the first for type 1 versus type 2, where it could be last in some cases. Another is that healthy eating or exercise can replace insulin. That's again a misconception, came because of type 2, because in type 2, if you opt a healthy eating styles, healthy lifestyle, you can omit insulin to some extent, or sometimes you can also stop going on a insulin treatment. But for type 1, that's not the case. Regardless how much exercise they do, how much healthy they eat, they still need it because the body is not at all producing it, which is not the case in type 2. In type 2 diabetes, body is still producing some insulin. It's just the resistance which is making it less effective. Then some people believe that type 1 is contagious or prevents marriage or family life, which is false and I would say hurtful, especially when it comes to females. They are often taken as somebody who could not manage a good household or healthy lifestyles with their families. So that is completely illogical, I would say. With the right care, support, and mindset, people with type 1 diabetes can live full, healthy, and successful lives. In fact, I know many female type 1s who are excelling in their careers in a very inspiring manner and have children who do not have type 1 because it's not a genetic condition like type 2. There are some chances to that the offspring could have it, but those are very rare. They are as likely as like I got it, my whole family does not have it, my mother doesn't have it, my father doesn't have it. So it's very unlikely. So that's the case, and you can manage it if there is right care and support available.
You are an example yourself. So how has representing Pakistan internationally helped bring new ideas home?
Okay, so I represent Pakistan through DDoc, a global community connecting people with diabetes and healthcare professionals, and also as a Blue Circle voice with International Diabetes Federation. These forums are inspiring. You see that challenges are similar globally in one way or another, but developed countries often have supportive policies and legislations. Working internationally allows me to network, collaborate, exchange ideas, and adapt strategies that can work in Pakistan, or also give me ideas that if something is not going right, what other steps can be taken to make those things right. So that's what I often experience while attending the international sessions or conferences which I often travel for. DDoc also provides a safe space to connect, share, vent, and learn, helping prevent burnout and tackle challenges effectively, because advocacy work, as I mentioned earlier, is very tiring and a slow process. So you often need that support and safe space when you feel morally down. Yeah.
That's nice. And share about your pioneer projects and innovations.
So we have a number of pioneering initiatives, but the most wonderful one is the promise of insulin that ensures uninterrupted access to insulin for underprivileged children. And then our peer support network that started with, I would say, we were just 2 to 3 people with type 1 diabetes initially, and now we have a community across Pakistan of up to 5,000 type 1s and their caregivers, which is a huge success. I believe they all are there to support, to talk to each other. Even when recently floods came in, we just gave a shout out that we need support in this town or city which were affected by floods, and many community members came forward that yes, I have extra insulin, I have extra backup for this part, and we can support each other. So that's how community connects and is there for each other. Another major project was Tidbits, that is the digital educational resource I mentioned earlier. It's again had very tangible results. It's a program that is sustainable on its own, and so when we started Promise of Insulin, it's a very important example that I want to mention here is that we also started providing tele-education to those underprivileged children, knowing that they could not afford to visit HCPs in a big tertiary care setup, and they're just going to their local clinics, and maybe the education is not available over there. So we were sending insulin, we were providing education through telephonic calls. But when we sent those videos, we made those videos accessible for them, we got an amazing response from these children that we were injecting insulin, but we didn't know what was the right technique to inject it. And now we got to know after seeing those videos that what's the right technique to check blood glucose, what's the right technique to inject insulin, and now our levels are getting better. So that's I think that was a huge step and a huge success as well.
That must have been a huge step. And what challenges do you still face in diabetes awareness care in Pakistan?
So there are many challenges, but I would like to talk about a few. Those are major ones. First, I think there is a big need of mass awareness. Awareness is still very low, even among healthcare professionals, which leads to late diagnosis. I shared my own story that I was visiting HCPs every now and then, and they couldn't figure out what's going wrong until I landed into DK. And this is back in 1996. And now in 2025, a few months back, I heard a very similar story from Lahore where the child went to a DK, although she was going to HCP almost every week. So you can understand that even after all these years, it's around 3 decades now, and still people are going in that condition just because of lack of awareness. So awareness is the key, I would say. Another one is that access to insulin is unpredictable. In last 3 years, there were a number of shortages, and these shortages impact anyone, even the families who can afford it. So that uncertainty makes diabetes management stressful and dangerous as well. Another major challenge is the stigma and misconception that is persistent, and with many people unaware of the difference between type 1 and type 2 or daily effort required to overcome this condition. It's a big barrier, I would say, and it should remain a priority to make a proper difference between these two so that people could understand why it's different from the other side.
Right. You mentioned that you have been creating that awareness, and your organization is also doing that. And now you mentioned that there is a lot of type 1 diabetes who are in your contact, and this is a breakthrough. Yet you also mentioned that still a lot more needs to be done when it comes to awareness, and you mentioned a very sad example from a recent case in Lahore you just mentioned. So in that scenario, do you see the role of policy makers and doctors especially, and the public? So enlighten us on that also, please.
So the mass awareness campaign I was talking about is indeed for public, because it's not that they are deliberately having those myths or misconceptions. It's because they don't know, and the taboo, the stigma associated to this condition is because people don't know. I believe 50% of the population I meet on day-to-day basis, if we tell them that why this is different or how they should be taking it, so those judgmental remarks changes into support. So that's part one. As far as policymakers are concerned, they have to ensure comprehensive diabetes care, from consistent insulin supply to accessible healthcare and education programs, specifically for people with type 1 diabetes, because for them insulin is the only resort, not the last resort like type 2. So it's a matter of life and death for people with type 1 diabetes, and this should be noted by the policymakers to bring these things in the healthcare policies. We often share this concept that why not the insulin producing or marketing companies could have a quota for people with type 1 diabetes, at least for the times when they do know that their stock is going to be short in upcoming times. So they should have a reserve insulin for at least those who are type 1s because they could not survive without it. So that's another part. And then healthcare professionals, it's not just about prescriptions. You have to educate the family, you have to listen with empathy and provide emotional support. Sometimes, even if you are prescribing the best insulin, the best treatment to the person living with it, dealing with it, still small words of encouragement can be more impactful as the treatment itself.
That's absolutely true. And I mentioned your introduction, and you are an MPhil molecular medicine. So I would like you to please let our listeners know about that area a little.
Okay, so as I mentioned that till my graduation, I wasn't able to meet any type 1. And so I had to direct my energies to something positive. And that was my way of doing it, that, okay, if I am not able to do something, what I'm doing as of now, why not I channelize my energies in going into research related things and find a cure for type 1 diabetes. Of course, that was my thoughts around a decade ago. I still believe in that, but not everything is possible whilst being when in a developing country where resources are very limited. So I chose molecular medicine as my career path after doing masters in biotechnology, because I believe that finding a cure for type 1 diabetes will be coming from this side of science. And we are now seeing some very good research studies that are coming forward across the globe, which are promising, and I believe that soon we will have a cure. But I had the same mission and vision that maybe while doing masters in molecular medicine and going into type 1 research, one day I could find the cure. And that's why I opted for the same subject. And my research topic was also for diabetes. Yeah.
Inshallah, our listeners and we are hopeful that someday you will make a breakthrough in this and your research. And has it really helped you? You just mentioned that in 1996, when you were 5 years old, you were diagnosed with this, and after almost 3 decades, do you see any difference? You mentioned that unfortunately the things haven't changed the way it should have been. Yet you must have seen some improvement also. So tell us the positive side also.
Definitely, Imad. I can say that, I can vouch for that, that things are much better now. There is no limit, and nothing could be perfect. We are living in this world, and nothing could be perfect. But if I talk about specific improvements, as I mentioned that when I got diagnosed, there was no human insulin. Now we have analogs. So the beef insulin or even the human insulin, I had to take a short 30 minutes before meal, which is very much impossible for a kid, because you never know if he will eat something or not after 30 minutes. But now we have analog insulins which start kicking up in 5 to 10 minutes, so you can always inject right before meal or right after meal. It will not give you a spike immediately. So that's a huge development in terms of technology. Then I mentioned about the pricking devices, that I didn't have a lensing device. I had to prick directly with the lancet. However, now we have continuous glucose monitors. So just having that one prick every 14 days, we can have those readings on our phone, on our glucose monitoring readers, without even, like, it's a non-invasive in a way that you don't need blood, but it is of course invasive, but you do not have to prick to check. So, and it gives you a glucose reading every 5 minutes, which is a huge breakthrough, because after having these devices, many people who have the issue of hypoglycemia unawareness, which is like you go into a low blood sugar, but your body is not recognizing it, you are not getting the symptoms and signs of it. So that's very helpful to protect those issues, and then also you can correct by giving yourself insulin, your sugar levels, which is again a very meaningful step. So yes, there are improvements. And then the best thing is that back then there was no peer support group in Pakistan, and now we do have that. Again, that's another very good support, because without emotional support, managing diabetes is, I think, not possible.
Yes, and emotional support you mentioned in your story, that one was that medical support you required, and that emotional support rather. You mentioned that in the school, and when people start thinking that it's contagious, so it must have been a difficult time for you. And now you say that you are telling us that things have changed. So that really is commendable. And you mentioned your organization, and how can listeners connect with you or follow you? You must have been your presence on the social media platforms.
So you can connect through our website. It's www.meethizindagi, meethizindagi.org, and we are available on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we run awareness campaigns, workshops across Pakistan. So it's not based just in Pindi, it's working across Pakistan. So you can connect through any city or any social media forum. And as I mentioned, that we are having this cycling campaign, so we would love to have more cyclers in our event. So if anyone who loves to cycle, they can join us on the respective dates in the respective cities, that is Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, on the World Diabetes Day. And you can always engage online as well.
And I'm sure that listeners who are interested in joining you on those specific days in these cities will definitely join you. And before going to your final words, I would like you to kindly enlighten our listeners of any celebrities who are facing the same stuff in Pakistan especially.
Okay, so in Pakistan, so I would rather share it with my story than when I used to go to the HCP for my appointment, and I was also trying to figure out who I can relate with or who I can talk with about my condition. So so one of my physicians always have Wasim Akram on Panaflex in his clinic, and the other one had Zeba Bakhtiar. And whenever I asked them, don't you have any other person like me visiting you for the same consultation? And he used to, you can see this great example, you can relate with them. And I was like, how I'm supposed to talk with that Panaflex? Anyhow, so yes, Zeba Bakhtiar, Wasim Akram, then we have Fawad Khan. All of them are living with type 1 diabetes.
And they are, Wasim Akram, when he was diagnosed, he was playing for Pakistan at that time. It's been 3 decades and he's still fit, and he coaches, and he is very inspirational and player all across the globe,
exactly,
loved by.
And that's why we say diabetes can stop you. You can do anything.
Yes, and he's the prime example that he is playing cricket. He played cricket for a country, and still, as I mentioned, that he is fit. And Zeba Bakhtiar and Fawad Khan, they also, and we are watching Fawad Khan these days also in a show. So now your final words for your listeners. What message would you like to give to our listeners?
So to everyone living with diabetes, especially the young listeners, diabetes is just part of your life. It cannot stop you. It's not the whole picture. You can still dream. You can achieve whatever you want. You can live your life fully. It teaches resilience, discipline, empathy, and strength. And always remember, you are not alone in this. There is a community of peers, families, advocates who understand what you are going through, and together we are stronger. Support each other, share your experiences, never let diabetes define your limits, and be open about this condition, because that's how we can actually raise voices and change the misconceptions around this condition. Life with diabetes can still be sweet, hopeful, and full of possibilities. You just need to take the first step.
That is brilliant, and life can be still sweet with diabetes. That is your message, and that's what exactly you do. Thank you very much, Anum Anwar Saiba, for taking time out for our listeners and joining us in this special show. And listeners, you must have learned a lot from her. She was sharing her story with us, and she shared so many inspirational quotes and stuff, and she also shared that how is this possible to live a perfect and a healthy and a pleasant life with diabetes. So listeners, this was from her, and now we'll be going on a short news bulletins break, and I'll be joining you after this break. Thank you very much, Anum Anwar Saiba.
My pleasure.
Thank you.